Hi, and welcome back to 10 Minute Bible. 10 Minute Bible is a playlist on my YouTube channel, 16 Minute Church. And the purpose of this playlist, 10 Minute Bible, is to help you read and work your way through Luke's version of the life of Jesus. So I hope this series will be a great help to you. I will share with you what I know, and I think there's some really wonderful things that can be shared with respect to Luke and what he lays out there for us. My name is Michael Venema, and again, welcome and thanks so much for joining in. If you've been watching my videos, you'll notice that the studio space looks a bit different, and that's because we're kind of in transition. We're moving from my wife and I moving from one place to another, so we're in a temporary situation until we're ready to move into our new place. Someone else has commented to me that it might be helpful for me to actually read Luke, section by section, and then comment about each of the sections. So we'll try that, and you can let me know if that's helpful to you. Leave a comment. So we are at the beginning of chapter 5. Beginning of chapter 5. This is number 8 in the series, but don't let the numbers become confusing. But it's chapter 5, the beginning of chapter 5. We're looking at in the book of Luke. By the way, the chapter and verse numbers that you see all through the Bible were not added until about 800 years or so after the Bible was put together in its final form. The monks around the year 1000, I think, plugged in the numbering system, which is great because it helps us to get to the different passages quickly. Okay, so I'm going to read the first part of chapter 5, and then I'm going to make a few comments about them. And I'm using a version of the Bible called The Message, which you might already know, and I think it captures nicely the dynamism of the stories as they first would have been written and read by the first readers. So, once when Jesus was standing on the shore of Lake Gennesaret, the crowd was pushing in on him to better hear the word of God. He noticed 2 boats tied up. The fishermen had just left them and were out scrubbing their nets. Jesus climbed into the boat that was Simon's and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Sitting there, using the boat for a platform, Jesus taught the crowd. When he finished teaching, he said to Simon, "Push out into deep water and let your nets out for a catch." Simon said, "Master, we've been fishing hard all night and haven't even caught a minnow, but if you say so, I'll let out the nets." It was no sooner said than done, and a huge haul of fish, straining the nets past capacity. Simon and the others in the boat waved to their partners on the other boat to come and help them. They filled both boats, nearly swamping them with the catch. Simon Peter, when he saw it, fell to his knees before Jesus. "Master, leave. I'm a sinner and I can't handle this holiness. Leave me to myself." When they pulled in that catch of fish, awe overwhelmed Simon and everyone with him. It was the same with James and John, Zebedee's sons, co-workers of Simon. Jesus said to Simon, "There is nothing to fear. From now on, you'll be fishing for men and women." They pulled their boats up on the beach, left them, the nets and all, and followed Jesus. So a few comments about that passage. First of all, there are crowds, so Jesus has a reputation now as a teacher and a healer, so crowds come out to see him. It was not unusual for young, aspiring Jewish teachers to travel around and find followers. So Jesus is not doing something that's totally brand new, but his healings and his teachings set him apart from the rest. So Jesus is on the shore. The crowd is kind of crowding him sort of into the water. He gets onto a boat and uses that as a speaking platform. Also, there's that little phrase about the scrubbing of the nets. There's a lot of little details in the stories of Jesus which highlight the fact that these are eyewitness accounts and they're not particularly cleaned up. to look very pristine and inspirational, with all the, the grubby little burrs weeded out of them. The Bible really isn't like that at all. The stories of Jesus certainly are not. There's lots of these little details which are very earthy, and it's just part of the atmosphere, the ordinary day-to-day, atmosphere, and very much an eyewitness sense about all these stories. Now, so then Jesus finished teaching, and he tells Simon Peter, "Let's go out and do some fishing," and you know what happened there. So there's a couple of things there. First of all, this amazing catch of fish. This reveals to Simon that God is present in whatever's going on, and he's a bit overwhelmed. This is too much for him. He knows that God is to be reverenced and feared, and he realizes that he's a sinner, and how is he going to fare in that kind of situation? So he says, "This is too much, Jesus. This is too much holiness. Leave me to myself. I'm a sinner." And Jesus ends up saying, "Simon, don't worry, don't be afraid. It's okay. I will make sure that it's okay." So there's that kind of thing going on. And why does Simon feel this way? Well, it's not just because of this amazing catch of fish in itself, but it's because this amazing catch of fish reveals that something is going on that of the kind that would take place in the pre-Jesus parts of the Bible, in the Jewish Bible, in what in the Christian community we call the Old Testament. There, God is in charge of the natural world. He sets the waters and the wind. In Psalm 107, one of the poems, one of the prayers in the pre-Jesus part of the Bible, in the Old Testament, God is revealed as the one who calms the wind, takes care of the waters. And of course, in the Old Testament, God is the creator of all the creatures. So God is in charge of the natural world. So when this amazing catch of fish ends up in the nets of Simon Peter, for him, this is an overwhelming sense that God is present and doing something, because God's the one who could make this happen. And then Jesus says to Simon, he says, "Don't worry about all the holiness. It's all there. That's true. But with me, Simon, it's okay." And he says, "From now on, Simon, you're not going to be a catcher of fish. You're going to be a catcher of people." And this is part of what goes on in the rest of the story of Luke. Peter and the other disciples travel with Jesus, and they begin acquiring this incredible following. They are definitely catching lots of people, and that has continued on even after Jesus' activities in the world. That's a longer story, but okay, so Simon becomes a catcher of people. Okay, so then we get to the next section. Jesus is in one of the villages, and there was a man covered with leprosy, and it's a skin ailment. I think I'm just going to paraphrase this a bit, but Jesus heals him, and then he tells the man to not go, so to speak, blabbing it all over town, but just to quietly go to the local priest, provide the necessary offerings that the Jewish law, the law of Moses, required to be seen as cleansed, and so then, but it turns out the guy couldn't keep quiet, and he starts telling all kinds of people what had happened. So there's a couple of things going on here. One is that the fact of the leper being cleansed again would have had an echo of something that happened in the Old Testament, in the pre-Jesus part of the Bible. There's a story of a man named Naaman in 2 Kings chapter 5, and God heals Naaman of his leprosy. God heals Naaman of his leprosy. So when this leper is cleansed, the people around are realizing, oh, this looks like God is at work here. They would have remembered the old Jewish story and now see it kind of being replayed again. And then then Jesus tells this gentleman to not go telling everybody what's happened, but to kind of keep it on the down low for a while. And why is that? And from my studies and my earlier days of being a student, it's It's that Jesus does not want his full identity to be yet spoken about or revealed. It's too early. He's just getting started. He doesn't want people to think of him as God or as the Son of God or things of that nature. I think in the next video we'll look at Jesus calling himself the Son of Man, which is another title which is also great, but it's not the Son of God, and it's not God, but already here we see Jesus doing things that typically people would expect God to be able to do. And so Jesus, tells this man to just take it easy on telling it to everybody. And Jesus' reputation is becoming great, but Jesus doesn't want it to become as great as it could possibly be just yet. So that will happen as the months and the years unfold, particularly at the end. So I think we'll leave it there. These are 10-minute studies, and so you've already given me an extra minute, so that's great. Thank you. Next time we will go to where Jesus does do something which, again, people would only expect God to do. He pronounces that a certain man's sins are forgiven, and so this starts getting Jesus into hot water. So that's for next time. So thanks so much. Leave me a comment. Please don't forget to subscribe and to share. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.